When Sherry D asked me about 6 weeks ago to write a poem about language, I thought, how interesting. And I realized that I've been using language all my life, but I really hadn't studied it much. So I went to YouTube, not YouTube, sorry, iTunes U, which is like a university. And you just type in language and it gives you this whole list of lectures on linguistics. So for 4 weeks I listened to nothing but lectures on linguistics, and I didn't really have time to listen to them, so I did it while I was doing other things. So I'd be going along doing the laundry and all of a sudden I'd have to stop and listen to what Marx had to say about Russian formalism. It was exciting. Of course, after doing a month of research, I realized that I couldn't use any of it. I also realized that language is interesting, but it's not very sexy. So when I mean, the study of language itself is really sexy, but the actual studying language isn't so sexy. And so I thought I would put sex in my title. And then I realized that, you know, language is interesting and the study of language is interesting, but it's not that dramatic. So I thought, well, birth and death is dramatic, so I'll put that in the title. So this is called Birth, Sex, Death, and Language. Here it goes. My name attached itself to my embryo. Before I was me, they spoke Mr. Miles. Later, when squishy head poked out of the birth canal, maybe a nymph said, Kirk is here. Language tags you before you're out of the womb. So you become your name, as Dorothy acts like Dr. Dorothy, and Sue speaks like Nurse Sue. Words wrap you in a hospital towel. Consciousness begins with a scream. The sharp slap of your baby butt becomes a sound wave. A mouse who scurries down the ear canal and bangs his tail on the tympanum membrane. Tap, tap on that eardrum, little rodent. You hear a sound that are words, but have no meaning for you. It's a boy. The YouTube vid, two babies converse around a doorknob. Gibberish is clown speak. They mimic adults. One turns and grins as if to say, we made it all up. Language began in a cave as an ugh. Roughly translated, pass me the bone, you brontosaurus hog. Words are the quarter pounder of beef in the hamburger of meaning. You need language to speak about language. You feel regret, but how would anyone know that without the signifier regret? Nitroglycerin. The N authoritative and a bit cocky as it stands next to the introverted I. The tro is there to slow us down, and then suddenly, like a biker dating a ballerina, we get glycerine. The unassuming G and the likable L softens us up for the rin cycle. Nitroglycerine are standing so close to each other, they're practically fucking. If you drop this word, it explodes. There are so many others. Buttocks. The lips form so much like a hot ass of onomatopoeia, you want to pinch the cheeks. Mezzanine. Every letter looks like a contemporary sofa for the literary weary. Or phoneme. The word is so sensual, it's like making love to a feather boa. Then there are words that appear like aliens on hallucinogenic mushrooms. Bisextus. A new sexual orientation, right? Wrong. Anything to do with the leap year that comes in February. Sometimes. Words, overused or forgotten, like stuffies in a basement toy box. If language is plastic, words are polymers. Gathering words from the polluted sea, the letters caught in nets all squirmy to get away. How simple would life be if sentences were all 2 words long? I walk, the store, get bread. Okay, but no. The grammatical unit of 1 or more words that expresses an independent statement, question, request, command, exclamation, or such that is typically has a subject as well as a predicate, and in print or writing, a sentence begins with a capital letter and ends with the appropriate punctuation, and in speech it displays recognition, commutative intonation patterns, and is often marked by preceding and following pauses, and sometimes runs on. If a steering wheel is a word, then the sentence is a car. And I want my poems to drive this mofo auto, this souped-up Chevy of meaning right off the metaphorical cliff. I want my drag race art to fly through the air while we kiss in the front seat and crash and smash on the rocks of paragraphs, then smolder and hiss at the bottom of the cliff as we sink into the sea of the collected mind. Which brings us to metaphor. Extended or otherwise, they are dangerous. As they are casual. Don't screw with a metaphor unless you know what you're doing. As Milan Kundera said, a single metaphor can give birth to love. So when using metaphors and even similes, use a language condom. Then after an afternoon of body-slamming pleasure, gather up those paragraphs and tell the story that will make the world weep. Story finishes as naked bodies on the unkept bed. The beginning is cocktails at the bar. The setting shifts to the lobby of the condo. Pawing gropes as buttons loosen and zippers fly. Wet spittle on parched skin. Nervous giggles about position and movement and those salty tastes and sweaty smells. The screaming climax is the climax to our narrative. Backs against the headboard and the vape's out. Because no one really smokes anymore, or at least not in this trope. If sex is a short story, kids are a novel. As Courtney Love, bless her dirty blonde soul, pointed out, the language of love letters is the same as suicide notes. English is my native tongue. I was arrested in southern France for trying to speak French. Nice is nice, but their jails suck. There are other ways to communicate. Body language. Just like a Sharpie to my skin, please. Gesture is denotation. Pantomime is treatise. A lateral movement of digits on the testicular globes in the male nether region conjures prickling epidermis relief. Scratching one's balls means they are itchy. When you come to the game of language, bring a sharp axe and not some silly toy gun. And after all that passion poured on the page, it is over. And the linguists go to work like crows on a moose carcass. Pragmatic, semantics, diphthong and dorsum. Even the language of language is a carrion meal. Please say a few words while we put him in the ground. The author is dead now, but some things he wrote still hum and hump between the sheets of paper called books. Even his bones have turned to dust, but a handful of his letters live on. Thank you.